Hello and welcome to the Red Jacket Club. My name is Andy. I'm here with Brendan, and this is where we talk Cardinals baseball. Today is February 21st. This is the 17th episode, I believe, of the Red Jacket Club. We're here to talk about the spring training preview. Games start this weekend, so I know I'm excited. I'm ready, so ready for baseball. But before we get into that, if this is your first time visiting the channel, please consider subscribing. We're doing this weekly, hoping to, once the season starts, possibly do things bi-weekly. We have other content that we're thinking about creating around our season in general as a men's league team. So that's exciting for us also. And then just doing a couple other things surrounding the Cardinals. Um, Hope that you consider joining us every week or whenever we post a video. So. Um, and also before we get into our topic today, Brendan, how you doing? It's been a minute since we've seen each other. Um, what's going on?
Nothing much. We saw each other Sunday. Had some one of our baseball tryout or not tryouts, but one of our baseball practices,
Practices.
and
Yeah,
I'm still
finally,
pretty sore. I feel like every year that goes
dude.
by, I'm getting more and more sore. I'm not even that. I'm only 20. Oh yeah, you got your
Get
massage
yourself
gun there.
get yourself a massage gun.
I got one. I need to use it though, cause yeah, I'm feeling it. And then I hit yesterday too, so I hit 2 days in a row. So I'm feeling pretty dang sore. But I mean,
Yeah.
it's good sore. Like I
hmm
love it, obviously.
I hit Sunday with you, and then I hit the gym for the first time in
Oh yeah,
years.
that's
um,
good, dude.
and yeah, the muscles feel like they've been used for the first time in a while, but they're loosening up, so
Good.
that's good.
Yeah.
Um, Before we talk about spring training, there's been some developments and other news in the Cardinals world of things to talk about. One of those, we'll start off on kind of a sad note. Our very own Tim McCarver passed away last week on the 16th, and he was 81 years old. I guess that's just the time that things like that happen. I haven't really looked much into how he passed, but all I know is that that was a voice that was a very big part of, I don't know about yours, Brendan, but my memory of especially playoff baseball. But for a good chunk there, he started doing a lot of Cardinals games when I think, in high school or college. And so Tim McCarver, so much knowledge and just a lot of Cardinals history in general. Him catching Bob Gibson through those amazing years and everything like that. We definitely lost a good one.
Yep. Very sad news. I don't really have too much to say about it other than just a Cardinal great, and it really came unexpected. I didn't even know he was in bad health. So condolences to the family.
Absolutely. Yep. Prayers and thoughts always to the family and Cardinal fans that are still grieving that. Certainly understand that, and we know that it also took a toll on a lot of people in the organization. So, but to move on to more interesting and lighter news. Also, last week, John Mozeliak got his contract extension. So, love him or hate him, we're with him for till 2025. And I mean, we've been apologists this whole time, Brendan. I'm excited that Mozeliak is sticking around. It sounds like this is going to be a little bit of a transition period for whoever may come next, but at the same time, his vision, the DeWitt vision that I know a lot of people online hate, but their idea of building a ball club is going to stick around for the next couple of years.
Yeah, this is some really good news. I mean, I'm super excited about it. I made a few posts here. Since taking over as GM in 2007, Mo has the third best record in the league. He also has one World Series, two NL pennants, and 10 playoff appearances. And, like you said, love him or hate him. I mean, personally, I can't see how you can hate a guy that does that. People are, I want to say, casual fans. They say, "Oh, it's just Mo. He doesn't like to spend money." It's like, well, that's not really the case because we win year after year, and I don't know. This is just really important. A few other quotes that I posted. Um, Basically, the last quote that really matters. He says, "But as we get deeper into this contract, there will be changes." So it sounds like these 2 years are gonna be kind of like a way for Mo to get like Mike Gersh more involved in decision making, stuff like that. So it will be sad to see him go in 2 years because of how successful he's been, but hopefully he'll kind of pass down his knowledge, and then it'll be like he never left.
For real, yeah. And as long as the DeWitts own things, I don't think much is going to change in terms of the managerial style of the ball club. I feel like they have a pretty heavy hand in things, and but at the same time, new vision, new perspective is always welcome, and hopefully that's something that does kind of transition in a positive way from Mozeliak's contract, I assume, ending his career in 2025. Also, in other news, the Cardinals have all reported to camp. There were a couple stragglers due to some family issues, but it sounds like everybody's at camp. Everybody's healthy, except for I read today that Yepes kind of fouled a ball off his leg. It sounds like that was a pretty nasty knot that he received there on his shin. But other than that, the physicals came back with no negatives, so we're ready to go for Saturday when games start. And then really the last bit of last week's news is that arbitration hearings ended. Cabrera and Helsley both lost their cases. I think Helsley is ending up receiving 2.15 million for this year instead of the 3 that he requested, and Cabrera is getting 950,000 instead of the 1.15 million that he requested. I didn't really hear anything that Cabrera had on that, but it sounded like Helsley was a little disappointed, yet ready to start the season, kind of get past it, and it didn't seem to phase him that much.
Yeah, I'm happy that he didn't take it like Burns did. Corbin Burns, I'm talking about for the Brewers. It sounds like, I don't know, it sounds like it went really sour, kind of like the Jack Flaherty news that we had a
Mm-hmm.
couple years back. It sounded like just, I don't know. I think it's a bad system, even though I don't know how the system should work. But I guess the only thing I have to say about this is thankfully, those were the only two that had to actually go through the arbitration process. I think there were like 7 or 8 other players that had to go through arbitration, but they avoided it because they agreed on a contract. So that's a pretty good ratio. If only 2 of our guys have to go through the arbitration out of around 10 players total, then I'm pretty happy about it.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate to say, but both players had reasons to have clubs win that case, the club win that case. Cabrera struggled later into the season, and Helsley obviously, I mean, had an all-star year, but recency bias is a thing, and if you're the reason we kind of lose that first game in the playoffs, then there's a strong case as to it just in the terms of the way that the system works, why you would get
Right.
denied your money. So it is a weird system, but I mean, even they just locked out the season for a little chunk of last year, and they still couldn't figure out how to fix it. So it's something that's not easy to figure out, and it's probably going to take long time before they do figure it out. But I mean, both players are still here. They're ready to compete, and we're both ready to watch them compete. So, the last bit of news that we'll just kind of get into quickly is that reports came out today that Tyler O'Neill is competing for the center field position. These were quotes from Ali Marmol from different sources that are at camp right now, but Tyler O'Neill is apparently not settling for left field. He has expressed his desire to play that position. I think he's playing for Team Canada in center field. So it just sounds like he is prepared to take on Carlson and Nootbaar, who I believe are both probably vying for that position as well. And it's really exciting for me. I love the game within the game, players competing against each other, hopefully in a friendly way, and working to try and solidify a spot as they enter the regular season.
Yeah, there's just so much competition out there right now. You have Alec Burleson, who's fighting for some playing time. You have Yepes, who wants to get into one of the corner outfield spots, even though he'll be slotted in at DH a lot of times, but so will Gorman. So it's like there's so much competition, and then he's not dumb. He knows that Jordan Walker's on the way, and left field or right field is where he's going to play. He definitely can't play center. So him and Newbar aren't dumb. They know that the competition is coming, and they're really good players, which means we have some really good depth. And like you said, this is a really good thing, a really good problem to have. And I think in his mind, he kind of knows that he's better than Carlson. So we'll see if he ends up beating Carlson out. I kind of hopefully what happens is he just has a really good showing so that we understand that he can play center field in case Carlson does kind of take a dip down, another dip down, or even repeats from last year. Then you can slot O'Neill into center field, and then let's see, maybe Walker has a solid spring, or Burleson's going off, and they can slot into left. So that's kind of what O'Neill is thinking. If he were to just settle for left field, then there's plenty of guys that are going to try and take that position. So he's not a dumb guy. He's trying to make himself valuable, and maybe even for free agency in a few years for him.
Absolutely. And that kind of walks right into my first question slash expectation or just wonderment about spring training, because there's a lot of these guys who are competing for positions, but a lot of them are also going to be in the World Baseball Classic. So I asked this question. I kind of got shit on on Twitter for asking it, but I feel like it's a valid question. How are we comparing and contrasting the players that are going to the WBC and the players that are going into spring training that will be seen by Ali Marmol every day? And that also comes into play when it comes to the rule changes, because these MLB rule changes are not affecting the World Baseball Classic. So my big question was, how is that going to determine how Ali will grade a player? And obviously performance is a whole thing. So if somebody in the WBC just completely flubs and doesn't play well, then I guess they don't get a spot. But at the same time, like, it's different competition, different mindsets going into each game. Like a spring training game doesn't have the same mindset as a tournament game. I'm just really kind of at a loss as to how all these guys are competing for spots, and how Marmol will go about kind of assessing who will get what.
Yeah, I personally don't really see, let's say like Tommy Edman struggles for South Korea, but Mason Wynn goes off and Ali sees Wynn every day, and then all of a sudden Wynn is like on the roster. Like I don't really think that's gonna happen in my opinion. But I will say this is a young player's dream right now. You have the manager, the head guy with his eyes on you every single day while all the
Hmm.
star players are off playing for the country. And so, if you're Mason Wynn and Jordan Walker, you're like, okay, if I go off, then I have a shot to really break the roster. But if I don't go off and I just, I play average or below average, then it's spring training, so who cares? Then I'll get better in the season. So it's like
Hmm.
it's really win-win for these young guys, and I bet I mean, if it's just a really good place for them to show off their skills.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're right. Being a young player's dream, it's just like there is, I guess the outfield is my biggest question because there is so much unanswered questions. That you just don't know where any of them are going to play. And then the other thing is yeah, Mason Wynn is that guy that everybody's talking about, but you forget about Paul DeYoung. I mean, if Tommy Edman really does not play well, or if he gets hurt and Paul DeYoung is playing well, how does he not nab that spot? Like there's so many different things that like can happen, and there's a different again approach to each game. I would hope that people in the WBC aren't approaching it as a spring training game. But and then that tidbit that I mentioned about how the rule changes aren't really affecting the WBC. I've heard Goldie and Nolan kind of say that it's a wait and see attitude. Like he said, I think Goldie said they adjusted to replay. Like we'll adjust to the new rules, but I mean, I'm seeing kids in college get rung up. I mean, the innings are ending and they're getting rung up on this 8 second call. I just feel like if they're not seeing it every day before the season starts, there's going to be a big learning curve, and it's going to be interesting to watch and see how players adjust accordingly.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest learning curves is going to be for pitchers, just because of that time, that pitch clock, and for hitters, I feel like it would be easier to adjust to the pitch clock. Maybe not, but I think for pitchers, that's where it's really gonna be tough for them. Like we said before, we hopped on here. It would be nice to see the rules implemented in this year's WBC, but like you said, I mean, it's not affiliated. It's a lot of these other teams aren't affiliated with the major leagues, so it'll probably take them a few years or maybe never to implement these rules. I don't even know how like the Japan league. I don't even know how their shifts work if they do shifts. I don't know anything like that. But or the KBO. I was like,
Yeah.
what's the name of that league? The KBO. I don't know what their rules are, and maybe in 4 years we'll see these rules implemented in the WBC. But yeah, it'll be an interesting test when they come back for sure.
Yeah. And so I don't know. I'm definitely excited to watch the World Baseball Classic, but it kind of I don't know. I feel like it might ruin my momentum and my excitement about the Cardinals. Obviously, I'm excited about these young guys, but unlike others, I don't think that these guys are going to be making it on the team out of camp. So I want to see how certain players do fare against the competition, especially since this year most teams aren't playing in division as much as they were last year. So seeing those different teams that you normally see in spring training and then like never see throughout the season would be good for guys that again are going to be away from the team. So I don't know.
I got a question for you.
Yeah, give it to me.
Um, I don't know if you're ready to move on a little bit, but
Yeah.
how well do you think Jordan Walker has to do in the spring to break that opening day roster? Because keep in mind, he's not on the 40 man. So someone on the
Right.
40 man roster would have to be kicked off. So
Right.
what do you
That
think?
that's been my thing the whole time. I was like, who do you kick off? And I know a lot of people say, oh, Paul DeYoung, oh, Dakota Hudson, but that's just not how it works. Like there
Yeah.
has to be value there in order to get it done. And I mean, it's got to be something extraordinary. And that's just not how spring training is. It's spring
Hmm.
training's for reps and like he's not going to go 2020 in spring training. Like
Right.
he's not going to steal 20 bases, he's not going to hit 20 home runs. Like I don't know what he can do in order to make this team with how full like yeah, the you like you mentioned, the 40 man is full. So I don't know why people still posit the question and say that it's a shoe in or that Dylan Carlson has no spot in the outfield. Like this guy is still a hitter, and if he does figure out his problems, I mean he's just leaking out in front of things. So all he has to do is figure out his timing. That's really the only problem that I was noticing from watching film. I just don't think there are enough problems with the players that we have, and I don't think there's enough time for Walker to prove that he's more than what we've already seen, which is obviously amazing. But I mean, it's got to be something extraordinary from the current players that can't produce for him to be there.
Yeah, I still don't think he cracks that opening day roster. I mean, you got to keep in mind if you're playing devil's advocate here, I guess kind of like the arbitration process works, and saying why he shouldn't be in the big leagues. It's like he's only done this up to the Double A level, and he has to prove himself. He's still only 20 years old. First off, there's no reason to rush the guy. We got to see how our roster does. Even if we waited a whole nother season and he just does average in the minors, that's better than rushing him up and then just like like
Herrera,
Jared
no,
Keln. Well, I was thinking
well,
like
yeah,
top prospects that flopped,
yeah,
like, and then like Herrera, you don't want to see him going up and down. I mean, that's the absolute last thing you want to happen to one of your top prospects.
a superstar.
Yeah, a potential superstar. So,
Yeah,
and that's another thing is I don't really want to. overhype him too, because I'm bringing up that Jared Kelenic again. I mean, when he came up, Seattle was like, "Oh, here's the guy. This is it." And it's like there's no guarantees. So I just don't want to be that team that has their top prospect just flop. So I
Mm-hmm.
hope everyone moving forward is just kind of, I don't know, content with him going down to AAA, having hopefully a good season, and then eventually coming up later in the season after one of our guys proves that either an injury or one of our guys proves that they can't really put it together, or I don't know, something like that. That's kind of the situation I
Right.
see him making the roster.
Yeah, it's I feel like it's a month or 2 months into the season before we see him on the major league roster. And that's nothing against him. It's just a little bit of inexperience and just the fact that we're full. Like
Yeah.
the roster's full. So I mean, I know some people aren't going to be happy with that answer, but that's just the truth. So
I think people don't understand what happens when you get removed from the 40 man. So like let's
yeah.
say if we were to remove someone right now before the season starts, like let's say Dakota Hudson, then another
Hmm.
team's just going to take him, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, that's fine." It's like, "No, that's a pitcher that
That
adds
has
depth."
value.
Yeah, he is,
He
as
either
much
has
as
value to
people.
the club or he has value to another team. So
Right.
I mean, you can package him up with another player, and you like that's then two spots gone. You can get a player back and then bring Jordan Walker up. Like there's different ways to go about it than just say, oh, DFA him and get rid of him because he's obviously hasn't been performing well. Well, that's just not how the sport works.
Right. And I'm sure the team has high hopes for him going into the season, so we're not just going to DFA a guy that because of his past,
Yeah. I mean,
we don't
every
even
year's
know.
different. Yeah, every year's different. And especially for somebody like a Tyler O'Neill, who obviously knows how to keep good care of his body. But last year he couldn't stay on the field because of his body. So, like, there's still a question about him. Yeah, he can be confident that he can take that center field spot, but like, can he stay on the field? Like,
Yep.
that's the big question there. There's so many unanswered questions, and just because of that, you can't rush a guy to the majors to try and solve them all with one player. So,
Exactly.
but while we're on the topic, um, talking about players that I've read could be potential busts or breakouts and things like that. My other question is again kind of revolving around the WBC. Contreras decided not to play in the WBC this year because he wanted to learn the pitching staff, which one is really cool. Two, it sounds like I mean, from the video clip that they put out today, the Cardinals put out like a 2-minute clip of him just mic'd up
Oh,
talking
I love
with
it, dude.
everybody.
That
Yeah, it
that
was
clip
pretty
was so
exciting.
fun, man.
He just looks like a kid in a candy store. He looks like he's
Yeah.
so happy to be like getting ready to go. And maybe he was like that for the last couple of years, but I don't know. The media sure didn't make it seem that way. But
Yep.
yeah, I'm just wondering whether or not his he'll be able to gel. I feel like that's at least amount of concern. But even just from interactions on Twitter and then Bleacher Report Walk Off, their Twitter account posted a article about the free agents that got signed this year that are biggest potential to bust is what it said. And Wilson's picture was the thumbnail for the article. And I was just like, well, they have to have something because Cubs fans were telling me that his defense has sincerely declined. But when I look at his stats, I mean, he's always above average in terms of where he is at a catcher. I know they haven't been using him as a catcher, but I think that was just because the Cubs and Wilson had a different mindset on how they were going to manage the team. And um, and really baseball or Bleacher Report, their reasoning was that Yachty was so good that he has the potential to not live up to Yachty's defensive metrics, and that's why he could be a big flop because he won't be able to replace Yachty's numbers. But at
Well,
the
of
same
course he's
time,
not going to.
yeah, I mean that's everybody's expectation on the Cardinals. So like I don't understand how you can say that just because Yadier Molina was so good, and if Wilson Contreras does half the numbers of what Yadi did, which is usually kind of where he fell in, why that means that Wilson won't be a good free agent signing. Like, why does that make him a flop? Like, I get that there's clickbait and all that bullshit, but I just like to make him the face of that article kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
Well, yeah, of course he's not going to live up to Yachty, man. Like, who would?
Yeah.
No free agent would. So that's yeah. I didn't see that article, but I think that's a little ridiculous. His offensive numbers are there. His saber metrics are there. If you want me to dive into that, but I'll just dive into one. All right, I'm
Yeah,
not
go
gonna
ahead.
get into all. But the most important one, in my opinion, the expected weighted on base average. He's in the 94th percentile. Now, if
Yeah.
that was like low, if that was in like the, let's say 30 to 40 percentile mark, then I'd be like, okay, he's due for some regression. But he's full steam ahead when it comes to offense. And now, sure, defense might be a question, but this dude's a big leaguer. I'm sure he can't be that bad, right? And then he's
Right.
also got like Yachty on speed dial, I'm sure. We've had a Hall of Fame catcher for the last 20 years, so the whole club knows how he works. So they've got the tips for him, and he obviously wants to learn. So I don't know, man. He would have to be really bad at defense for me to say it was a flop.
Yeah, right. And I mean, and to go with an just one offensive statistic, his career OPS plus is 115. I think his last year was I think 130. I don't want to say that because I don't know. But career 115 OPS plus is not terrible at all. So
No, that's very above average. That means
right,
it's 15%
percent
better
better
than the
than
rest
the
of the league.
rest of the league, right? And that's for his career. So
And that's
um,
all hitters too, not even catchers. So
right. So I'm excited for Wilson. There's nothing more exciting than watching him be excited in the sound bites that are coming out of the locker room, him saying that this is like his place, the organization that he was meant to be at. He's happy to be a Cardinal. I mean, he was saying that 2 days into camp. So, yeah, I hope that the team does accept him. It sounds like everybody's getting along real well, and I hope that he gets to use this time, like he said, to learn the pitching staff and really get acclimated to the Cardinal way. For those who don't like that term.
right. So I'm gonna move on a little bit. I noticed, or we both noticed that you kind of stuck to the big guys, the big stars on our
Yep.
team, which is perfect because I'm contrasting that and going for the guys that are kind of on the outskirts, especially two guys here that I'm curious to see how they do in the spring. Zuniga, he is the guy that we signed who came out of the Mexican League last
Hmm.
year and had a extremely good season. Big strikeout guy. So I haven't seen any kind of clips with him yet, but just curious to see how he does. And then the other guy that I'm pretty curious to see is Moises Gomez. Keep in mind, Moises Gomez, well, first off, he is on the 40-man roster. Seems like they added him to the 40-man because they were probably a little worried that he's pretty much MLB ready. So a team could have picked him up in the Rule 5 draft. So we added him to the 40-man. And I don't know. I mean, he hit 39 home runs last year. He led
Hmm.
all of minor league baseball, I'm pretty sure, in home runs. And we'll see if that streak continues. I saw some clips of him working on his letting the ball travel deeper so that he can cut down on his strikeouts a little bit. So and he's first off, dude, he's massive. I didn't know how
Yeah.
big this dude was. Did you see those pictures of him?
Yeah, he's ginormous. He's yeah. I mean, everything about him just looks huge, massive.
Yeah.
His swing is big. It's powerful. And another thing that I noticed about him or saw on Twitter is that one thing that he's really working on is recognizing pitches as well. Like you said, letting the ball get deep, but also standing in on bullpens to really watch a pitcher's motion or release point or movement and getting those different things implanted in his brain just to become a better hitter. And I mean, that's all you could ask for from a guy who I don't want to say just scraped by and made the roster, but like you said, could have been just scooped out from under us, and he looks like he's a team player, which is really cool.
Yeah, I'm trying to find his height and weight. So I don't think this is true at all, but it says he's 5'11", 200 pounds.
Let
That
me
seems
see.
way off because I don't know, he's a big dude, big home run hitter, just kind of came out of nowhere. And yeah, he did just squeeze on the roster, but he did well enough to make the Cardinals aware of his abilities. So just super curious to see how he does, as well as Zuniga, to see if Zuniga can help us out in the bullpen and be that swing and miss type guy for us.
Yeah, and there are a couple. Well, not a couple. There's like 2 dozen other non-roster invites to watch
Yep.
for that you were noting. A couple of them. So Moises Gomez was on my prospect watch when we did that episode.
Yep.
Other was Gordon Graceffo. This guy's a right-handed powerhouse and one of our top prospects right behind Jordan Walker. And so I mean there's so much young talent that's just right on the cusp, and really part of the reason why I was glad that we could start doing this now, as we saw kind of the old guard and still one of the old guards leaving the team, and watching these young guys come up is going to be very exciting for us as we continue to track this organization.
Yeah, I'll just run through it real quick. The five guys in the non-roster invitees to watch for are pretty obvious. I think everyone, if they are following us, following our podcast, they've heard these names before. But the
Mm-hmm.
five to really watch for: Mason Wynn, Jordan Walker, Gordon Graceffo, Michael McGreevy, and Tink Hence. Graceffo, McGreevy, and Hence are these right. I think they're all righties, right? Is McGreevy a righty?
I don't know about McGreevy, but I can look it up while you're talking.
Okay, but yeah, so those are the big guys that we're going to be watching for the non-roster invitees. And like you said, there are 25 total non-roster invitees. So I don't know if there's like a cap that MLB puts on that, but I will say 7 of those are catchers. So those are just for bullpen purposes. But
Bats left, throws right. Michael McGreevy.
so we got a bunch of righties in the pipeline. I think our big lefty that's on the way is not invited because he was just drafted last year. His name is Connor Jerpy or something like that.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. We drafted him first overall, or first for us overall, and he wasn't invited just because he's young. But those are the 5 that I was really curious to watch, and I'm
Hmm.
sure everyone else is excited to watch them as well.
Well, and then there's Matthew Liberatore, who I know we've already seen, but he's still considered one of those top prospects,
Yeah,
who is a lefty. So obviously struggled a little bit last year. The numbers don't really look good for him if you just take a look at his baseball reference page, but still young guy, still considered one of the top prospects in baseball.
he's a
And
mouth
so,
breather though, so he kind of freaks me out.
well, it sounds like you're a bit of a mouth breather right now, but that's not really your fault.
Yeah, I'm getting a little sick. Can you hear
Um,
it in my voice at all?
just a little bit. It's no big
Yeah.
deal. Before we wrap up the conversation, I have one last kind of blaring question. And we talked. Well, I brought up the old guard. Albert Pujols had a magnificent second half of the year, and really, if he had done even half of what he did in the first half of the year of what he did in the last half of the year, um, I don't see how you don't give him like MVP 4 or 5. There's a lot that Albert did last year, especially in clutch situations, which is something that you only get from the experience of being Albert Pujols or a player like Albert Pujols. But there's big shoes to fill. Looking at his stats from last season, obviously the 24 home runs is big. 270 batting average, which is something that not a lot of guys touch nowadays. Obviously, it's an old stat, but 42 runs, 68 RBIs, one stolen base.
I was gonna say I don't know how we're gonna make up for that stolen bases, man. That one stolen
there's
base. What are we gonna do
I
without
don't know,
Pujols?
but his OPS plus in 2022. Do you see that number?
Oh yeah.
154. He was 54% better in than the rest of the league. At and it's just there's so much that he did. Obviously, again in clutch situations. I'm asking who's going to fill that role because I really don't know. I don't think that there's a lot of people that have proved that they can put up those numbers. I mean, O'Neill, yeah, but again, we have to make sure that he stays on the field in order to do it. Newt Bar, there's a lot of buzz around him, but he still hasn't proved that he's that type of player. Gorman, Yepes, both young, don't really have the data to support it. So there's a big spot in the lineup that can really be picked up if the offense is there. And I think that even if you just match the 2022 Pujols year, you're a shoo-in to be on the roster for a while.
Yeah, one thing I want to say real quick is I think that in years to come, people will be checking out Pujols' baseball reference just because, once he gets inducted in the Hall of Fame, they'll check it. Over time, his page will be trending. And I think a lot of people will go back to that last season and be like, holy shit, are those numbers like real? Like an
Yeah.
895 OPS with 24 home runs in his last season? Like, he had such a storybook year. If we just would have won it for him, that would have been awesome.
Hmm.
But when it comes to like filling that role, he was in that role to start where he was coming in those late innings, playing against lefties, those kind of things, and then he eventually forced Marmal's hand to be in the lineup every day. And so if I'm thinking about who's gonna be that role player to come in against lefties, come in late game, I really do think that's Yepes. And he followed Pujols around whenever he was still on the team. He tried to learn as much as he could from him before he left. So I think he is that team guy that's okay with just, sitting on the bench until it's his time. And then, make him force Marmal's hand. If Yepes just goes off, then he's gonna get playing time every single day.
Right. Yeah. And with the DH being there, there's no reason somebody who is doing that can fill that hole. While if Newt Bar is playing well, O'Neill's playing well, those two spots are taken up in the outfield. Um, Yepes can fit out there in the right or left field spot, and then Gorman, I guess, takes over DH. Like there's so many plug and play options. I'm just saying I don't know who. I agree that Yepes is a great candidate for it, but I don't know where the data is to support who will be even just the 2022 Albert Pujols. I'm not asking for anything else,
Yeah. Well,
because
when it
obviously
comes to
that's
the
not easy to do to be
right.
Albert Pujols.
Yeah. So yeah, when it comes to the actual stats, I mean, I'm not gonna sit back and say that Yepes
Yeah,
is gonna have an 895 OPS. I just think the only thing you can compare Pujols
is
to
the drive.
is well the drive and
Yeah.
the role that he was put in to get to that point. So yeah, I'm not gonna say Yepes is gonna have those numbers. In an ideal world, you would have him around 800 OPS, and then I'd be completely happy. Even if he had 24 bombs, that would be awesome. But
Hmm.
uh, but yeah, I don't know. Replacing that will be tough, and just Pujols as a person as well. You really can't replace that.
Yeah. I really did not like watch or seeing him in a at a Angels camp today. I don't know if you saw those
Oh, I didn't
pictures.
see that. No.
Yeah, there were pictures of him, and I again got. I don't know why I always get shit on Twitter. I guess because Twitter's a hellhole.
Yeah.
But you know, um, just really not a fan of what the Angels did to him. I appreciate Albert not having any OL and wanting to support the team and give them those years of service that he agreed to. I just don't think that they deserve it based on how they treated him. But that's a personal
It's
grudge.
the Angels, man. They're a
Yeah.
trash organization. I mean, what do you expect? They freaking can't do anything with two of the best players in the freaking world,
In the
man.
world, yeah. In the
So,
world.
what
So,
can you expect from the organization that sucks?
yeah. But before we wrap up the spring training talks, I guess we can talk about what what they have coming up in terms of schedule for the month of February. There's 4 games in February starting this weekend. We got the Nationals at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. Then on the 26th on Sunday, they go off against the Marlins. The 27th, Monday, they go off against the Mets, which will be an interesting matchup. And then the Nationals again on Tuesday. So the Marlins have great pitching. The Mets obviously have great pitching, and the Nationals will be good practice. Um, but uh, but yeah, I'm excited as all get out. I can't wait till we get to Saturday. Hopefully, we can figure something out. Open up our schedules to where we can watch it with people who want to tune in. We'll announce that later if we're able to get our schedules to work. But yeah, like I said, a couple of good games to have early after the full squad workouts, just so that we can see some again really good pitching from the Marlins and Mets to start out the spring training.
Yeah, hopefully we can end up streaming those games. I'm not sure how it'll work yet, but I'm so excited just to watch baseball again, and we'll see pretty much our full lineup. We'll have at least 3 innings probably just to get them ready for the World Baseball Classic. Typically, it wouldn't be like a full MLB lineup, but just because the WBC is coming up, I think we'll see a pretty similar lineup that we'll see opening day.
Mm-hmm.
So then we can hop into the news, the around the league news.
Yeah.
Um, we just have a few contract news. So the biggest thing, Manny Machado, he finished MVP 2 this last season. And he's openly saying that he's going to opt out at the end of the 2023 season. Currently, he's in a 10-year, $300 million contract. And what did he say he was seeking? Like 10 more years or something like that?
It was something crazy like, yeah, I think it's 10 more years for 400. So I think he's seeking $10 million more per year. Um, and I like the guy. I think he's a good player, but I mean, you can't argue with what he did last year. He was obviously the best player on the Padres. Obviously the second best player in the league, I guess you could say, based on the writers' opinions.
Well, we still
But
think that we still think
I
Arenado
know,
had a better season,
I
but
agree.
we'll
But
get past that.
yeah, based on the writers' opinions. But
Yeah.
I he's just betting on himself, kind of in the same vein that Aaron Judge is. He just has a little bit more leverage. He's the guy that has the say on what he wants, and it sounds like he's gonna pull every lever in order to get what he wants. But I mean, all he has to do is go out and be Manny Machado, and he'll definitely get the offers that he's looking for. I just found it weird that he arrived at camp and was like, "Yep, I'm opting out." Like,
Yeah, to be that open about it is definitely
yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
And so it sounds like he can still even talk with I mean, like obviously he can talk with whoever he wants to talk with, but it doesn't mean that he's not going to be on the Padres. But he openly is like, yes, I'm accepting any and all offers before he even talks to the club that he's married to at the moment. So that's just a little weird. I guess it's like baseball is just a weird sport we've talked about before because we kind of don't know how we feel about the teams having all the control, and then when the players have all the control, it kind of seems weird also because they sound super arrogant asking for $400 million instead of $300 million. I don't know. It's just it's an interesting outlook going into spring training with that mindset. Um, in a year where yes, you have the control, but you also like again you're married to a team currently, but I guess not too hard.
Yeah. That's just the difference between a guy like Arenado and a guy like Machado. And, it's
Yeah,
okay for Machado to ask for more, but I don't know. I think
it says something
I don't
about
really. Yeah.
him. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have too much to say about that. So another thing, Christian Javier, the pitcher for the Astros, signed a 5-year, 64 million extension. And one thing I actually saw yesterday or today maybe about the Astros, about how good of a club they are. They're first in the league when it comes to homegrown talent. And so I think they have like 15 guys on the 26-man roster who are all homegrown. I mean, talk about a franchise, man. As
Yeah.
much as people hate the Astros, they do it right there. They extend their young guys. I just traded for Framber Valdez in my dynasty league, so I'm pumped about that. I think Christian Javier is like their number 2, maybe. So they're locking him up for 5 more years. I mean, they're doing it right. They're just like
Yeah.
the Braves in that aspect.
Right. I was just gonna say that I would imagine that the Braves are right behind them in terms of homegrown talent, and then I would hope that the Cardinals aren't too far behind,
Yeah, the
considering
Cardinals were like 4th, I think.
yeah, considering how many young guys that we have on the team right now, that have just come up through the organization. So, um, before we talk about the other highlighted topic that I have, we can just quickly mention Luke Voit received a minor league deal from the Brewers. It's a little weird because just 3 years ago he led the league in home runs. Yeah, that's a COVID season, but he was hitting home runs like crazy. Did receive a pretty decent deal, I think, from the Padres for that 1 year or whatever. Obviously, was making a lot of good money with the Yankees, but it's kind of weird that he's fallen off. Obviously, he's a hometown boy, and you'd like to see him succeed, but and not saying that he won't with the Brewers, but just to see a guy go from the top of the league to a minor league deal with the Brewers, who apparently are better than the Cardinals based on all projections that come out. But we kind of have another uh, idea in mind about that. But that's it on Luke Voigt.
Yeah, Void is currently, or I guess he's finally labeled as a journeyman. He's been
Hmm.
everywhere. And
Yeah.
initially, whenever we got rid of him, it looked like we made a bad move. But over time, we saw that that is not the case. He's not really not that great of a player. Now he's within the division, so maybe he'll work his way to the roster, to the major league roster. Real quick, that homegrown talent that I just looked up. Houston has 15. Cleveland has 14, and we're tied with the Royals with 13. And Atlanta, just because you were curious, has 9. So
Oh
they're
wow.
a little bit lower in the list. So,
Hmm. Interesting.
yep.
Well, we can round out the contract news talking about Corbin Burns because his arbitration news was the biggest, just because he was so blatant about it. I mean, when it came to Jack Flaherty, we just got a meme. Um, and when it came to Corbin Burns, he sat on mic and on video and explained what he was being told and how he felt about it. And I know everybody's speculating about this, and everybody's kind of said what I'm going to say, but I think the Brewers really burned a bridge. They still have years of control on Burns, but I don't I don't see him really wanting to be on the club. It's not like he's not going to perform, but at the same time, I feel like his agent is going to work on his behalf to maybe get him away from that organization.
Yeah, that definitely won't happen. First off, he's way too good, way too valuable of a player.
Yeah.
Basically, the Brewers are gonna say, "Suck it up. You're not gonna get traded. You're pitching for us." Like the arbitration is what it is. I bet they've. I'm sure they've had a conversation behind closed doors because I'm pretty sure the GM or the owner came out and said like, "Yeah, we understand the arbitration process is tough, but everyone has to go through it." That's the thing is like yeah, it's a bad system, but like he's not special. Like, I mean, he is a
He
special
w- he
talent,
won he won the
but
Cy Young a year ago or two
he's a
years
special
ago.
he's a special talent. But no team is gonna say, "Oh yeah, you deserve the money that you think you're worth." It's, I don't
They
know.
they got
They,
rid of Hater. I mean they've gotten rid of their better talent. Like
yeah.
they don't seem like they're wedded to keeping the people that make their team better. Um, I don't really know what they're doing, and I don't see again why it's such a big deal because I think his was like 700 grand. Like I heard Chris Rose say on his show, like what's the price of making this player happy? Is 700 or 750 grand like the price of making him upset? Like
Is
what
that all
why
he
is
got? I don't
that
think
was
that.
that was the difference between what they were
Oh, the
asking.
difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know
He
that.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, and he's asking for 11 million when he's making 10 million. Like I understand like it's weird to hear pennies being pushed on these big ass numbers, but like when it comes to a guy like that, I don't think that, I mean, just the movement on his pitches alone should be enough to say, yes, take whatever you want. And especially when he's not asking for that much. It's not like he was asking for 15 million this year. He was just
Yeah.
asking for a little bit more. And the biggest thing that they told him, according to him, this is alleged, that he was the reason that they didn't make the playoffs, which your trade deadline was why you didn't make the playoffs. Like
Yeah.
what the heck are you blaming him for?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't slow down at all and turn. I hate watching the Cardinals have to play against him.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know. It is a weird process. I don't think he's the guy that you use that process against to save a little bit of money.
Yeah, it's a weird one, man. I don't really know what to think, but if he does get traded, let's just how about we just trade for him and we give him up a vending machine full of Coke or something. Because I don't know, he is a really good talent, and it does suck that he had to go through that process. But at some point, and I don't know, it is weird because 750,000. If I was a club, I would say, yeah, sure, here you go.
Hmm.
We'll avoid arbitration. You can have this. Yeah, it's a little ridiculous. So I
Right.
don't know what to really think about it, but um, at the same time, it's like that's just how arbitration works, and he shouldn't have been surprised, kind of thing.
I think it
But
was just the stuff that they were saying about him. I mean, telling him that he was the reason they didn't make the playoffs. Like you can't trade
yeah,
away the best closer in the game and then make other moves that make your team. I would imagine make the clubhouse a hard environment to be in, and then say that it was one pitcher. And again, that's just alleged. That's what he's saying it was. But at the same time, like, why would he lie about it? He would get
yeah,
he would get sued.
right,
It's
right,
all on the record. So
right. Yeah, we'll go ahead and move on then. That's enough Brewers talk for me. Uh, we'll go to the just quick injury news. Jacob DeGrom. Since this news came out, it looks like he has had a few bullpens, but it sounded like he had a strained oblique, which is never a good sign. And it's Jacob DeGrom, so who knows if he's actually going to stay on the field this year. We don't know. The Rangers don't know. I don't think DeGrom knows.
yeah,
He could be the best pitcher in the world, just like Byron Buxton. Oh, you're a great talent, but you don't stay on the field. So are you
yeah,
really? Well, I know DeGrom is. It's more of a Buxton thing that
yeah.
came to mind. But that, and if you don't have much to say about that, then one of our trade potentials, which we're both happy didn't happen in the time
Yeah.
too. Frankie Montas is having shoulder surgery, and he's gonna miss the whole season, or at least the majority of the season.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're pretty happy we didn't make that move.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy. I mean, there's who's the other one? Trevor Story. Like both of these guys waited real late. Like they not well, Montas was probably in playoff contention, but Trevor Story had no excuse to not get that surgery like in October.
Yeah, what are
Um,
you doing all off season? I mean, I understand like it's the
it's a
off season,
big
you can
thing to
do whatever you want.
undertake. Like, yeah, surgery I'm sure isn't great to like think about and have to make a decision on, but if it's a certain thing, like just kind of get it over with. I mean, baseball surgeons nowadays are above and beyond what they have been, so your recovery is going to be more than fine. It's weird. Even the Yankees weren't in the playoffs for that long. It's not like they were in the World Series. So even in then, November, you could have made this decision. It's just a little weird and unfortunate for Yankees fans who I know are not a very happy fan base to begin with. Um, to have to go through that. They're already hating this trade, the trade that got Montas to that team. So
Yeah. Yeah, nothing much else to say in my opinion. But let's wrap it up with the rule changes.
sure, you want me to go over them?
Yeah, go ahead.
So this came out last week. MLB's Joint Competition Committee, whatever the hell that means, voted unanimously to make the extra inning rule permanent for regular season games moving forward. So that means 2023 and beyond. So this also means that a runner will be placed on second base at the start of every extra inning, and that's according to ESPN. I think this is really unfortunate that they're sticking to this. Um, yeah, it makes games end quicker, but it also ruins the excitement of extra innings. Like you get free baseball, and there's nothing better than free baseball, especially when it's exciting. I mean, you and I both were at the Goldschmidt Grand Slam game last year, which was again exciting because there's so much drama to extra inning baseball, especially if it's close, especially if it was contentious. Like it wasn't just a lack of offense and not even a good pitching duel. Like sometimes you just get those lack of offense games, and it eventually turns out to end because there's a ghost runner on second automatically. I'm not a big fan of the rule, but to speed through the other one, new guidelines, leading teams that have scored 10 or more runs in the ninth inning or let me read that over. That's worded weird, but this is the position players rule. They put restrictions on it. This one I'm a little bit more in favor of because last year, yeah, it was great to see Pujols and Yachty get on the mound. It's funny, it's hilarious, but like I don't know, don't give up on games. I
It was
get that you want to
happening
save the
way
arms.
it was
Yeah,
happening way too often where yeah, a position player would come in if a team was down or up by 6 or 7, and it's like, well, yeah, you're totally just giving up at that point. And it's funny when you see these stars like Pujols and Yachty do it, but then you see, when it starts happening almost every night in another game around the league, it gets old.
yeah.
When it comes to the extra inning rule with a player on second base, I wish that they would I wish they would implement that in like the 11th inning, because at
Hmm.
some point extra innings do get, kind of I don't know, kind of dragged out, but I don't know, going straight into, or I guess the 12th inning, having 2 innings of regular play would be fun,
Hmm.
in my opinion. And then after that, then yeah, okay, you're starting to go through some pitching that you don't want to go through. And I am curious, is there a rule to where a position player can pitch?
Yeah,
Oh, any time in the extra
anytime in
innings? Okay.
extra innings, a pitcher's player can show up.
All right, that makes more sense, because I was gonna say you don't want to ruin your pitching just because you're forced to.
Yeah.
Um, so okay, that makes sense. But so yeah, the position player rule I like, but then the player on second base in extra innings, I wish they just waited a few innings to implement that one. But
Hmm. And I
uh,
think you said you had one more thing about the shift. Were you going to get into that?
yeah, so I don't think that the rule that is banning the shift is really going to ban the shift, and here's why. So what teams are going to end up doing is move the left fielder into that right field spot, into that shallow right field spot for guys like Joey Gallo, because they're going to let Gallo have that whole left field. I mean, why
Yeah.
wouldn't you? The dude can't
Doesn't hit it over there.
can't hit it over there. So
Yeah.
now it's almost even stronger probably, because
You
then
have
you
a
have
full
four
infield.
a full infield, so they can't just bunt it, and then all you're lacking is a left fielder, and he's sitting
Yeah.
in shallow right field. So at some
Because
point,
we should say again that the rule states that there should be two infielders on each side of second base, and they can't be on the grass that outlines the infield. So I see what you're saying. Teams will just start putting because they gave no restrictions to the outfielders,
right?
unless they just put that gavel down. before the season starts. But as of this time, it seems like it's free reign in the outfield.
Yeah, and I think it'll take. I don't know how the rules work. After they agree on something, I wonder if they can go back and agree on another thing. Probably not mid-season. I bet it'll just
Yeah.
be a regular season. But maybe next season they'll start to put. I don't like it. Me and you have talked about like and the big disadvantage that lefties have. So I kind of hope that there are some rules whenever it comes to the outfielders eventually, but I am curious to see how many teams will end up, like the Rays. I mean, I could see the Rays doing this all the time because they don't care. They just
Yeah.
care about the analytics and
The
stuff. So
metrics. Yeah.
that, yeah, so they'll put a left fielder in shallow right and have him sprint across the field, which is even farther than a run than the third baseman or the shortstop, because that's what a lot of people were griping about is a player just randomly running across the field.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It'll be interesting. There's always a loophole, and I guess it's better that an outfielder does it, but I don't. I don't know.
I just
Pitchers.
wonder if they
Yeah.
even thought of that whenever they're talking about the rule change.
I mean, they specifically put like a clause in there saying that outfield will remain free reign, I guess, for just paraphrasing. And so they definitely thought about the outfield, I guess not too hard. Um, but I don't know. We'll see what the season bears. We'll see if they do it in spring training. I would imagine that because this is so new, there will be videos of it, and we'll see it and watch whatever left fielder just take off before the pitch comes, or because they're also racing against the clock. So
Oh yeah, yeah, the
um,
pitch clock too.
they
Yeah.
yeah they have that to consider. I mean, you're right. It's going to be a full out sprint in order to make sure that the pitcher's engaged with the runner or with the batter and on the rubber and all that stuff.
And then
Um,
are they gonna to go even deeper? Are they gonna need like a utility glove, or that they can field
yeah.
ground balls with? And who are you gonna have confidence in Tyler O'Neill fielding the ground ball?
Maybe Major League Baseball did think about this, and they're like, teams will not want to go through all that crap, and
Yeah,
especially with the pitch clock and everything, and they won't do this. We'll see. I mean, I hope that people just start playing baseball straight up like it was. I want to say meant to be played. Like
yeah.
there are nine positions for a reason. Yeah, it's kind of like Indian ball, or I'm sorry if that's not politically correct. I don't know what the other name for that game is. But I mean, yeah, you don't want guys just standing where they have to stand, but it makes the game more exciting. You'll get more defensive web gems, and um, that's what I want to see. So, um,
If if we're worrying about politically correct this deep into a podcast that probably no one's making it to, then we're doing pretty well.
we'll see what the comments are when it comes to minute mark 1 hour and 5 minutes.
Comment
Um,
Indian ball if you're still listening.
Um, with that, I think we'll wrap up. I don't think we have anything else to say on those topics. It's an exciting week. Baseball does start in a spring training capacity on Saturday. If you would like, please subscribe. I know we would like it. Follow us on Twitter
We
at
just hit
Red.
100 followers on Twitter.
We
Shout
did.
that out.
Nice milestone for us as we go into the season with the hitting the century mark. You can follow us on Twitter at red_jacket club, Instagram with the same name. Um, if you would like to speak to us or talk to us, Twitter's probably the best place to do that. Please tune in as we continue to create content, and again, subscribe. But this has been the Red Jacket Club. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining the club, and we'll see you next time.